It has been said that young people are the future of any country or any world. I believe that's true. And if you do, then together we know that we must invest in our young people. One of the best ways we can invest in them is by obtaining the booklets from the drugfreeworld.org Truth About Drugs campaign. The booklets, especially on marijuana, come in English, of course. This is something that is out there and is talked about a lot in the media, but it also comes in Spanish. And then there is a book that is a compilation book. And this one is very important because it covers things like alcohol abuse, ecstasy. We know that cocaine, crystal meth are things that are dangerous. Inhalants can be abused, and also heroin, LSD, and even prescription drugs. So it's very important to get these booklets that give information about what these drugs and what alcohol abuse will do. They don't say don't take them, which oftentimes turns young people off. They tell everyone who reads these booklets what this kind of activity will do. And in that way, we're investing in our young people and investing in the future of our country and this world. Just go to drugfreeworld.org and get these free booklets right away. That is such a good thing to do. Given the booklets are free, we want to invest in our young people. This is a way to educate them, not dictate to them. So that's something you want to follow up on for sure. Today's guest couldn't be more timely with the fact that we're experiencing worldwide drought. My guest is Barbara Wiseman, and she has worked in senior executive positions dedicated to helping improve conditions for her fellow man in a variety of charitable, educational, and consulting organizations. In 2003, Barbara was invited by world-renowned conservationist Dr. Lawrence Anthony, known as the Elephant Whisperer, to help him create an environmental and conservation nonprofit dedicated to finding and implementing logical, science-based solutions to some of the world's most pressing conservation issues. Certainly, drought is something that affects all of us because water is a component of life that we must have. And she has worked together to locate previously unknown sources of water that have not come from rainfall and filtered down into the center of the earth, but come from the earth and have been pushed forward. Let me welcome Barbara Wiseman to We Have the Power.
Thanks very much, Brian. Glad to, very honored to be on.
Yeah, very good to be here. And of course, if you have individuals that want to know more about what you're doing, you can give us a website and other ways to contact you. But this program will stay on the prconnectionsradio.com until the sun burns out, that kind of thing. So it should be there as a tool that you can use.
We've got a little time then.
Yeah, a little time for people to catch this program.
Yeah.
Because we capture it. My name again, Brian Gardner, host of We Have the Power. We go live every Thursday at 5 p.m. So please watch the programs and check the earlier programs we've done. So this is quite a statement that this is not rainfall that has seeped down into the earth and is sitting there waiting to be utilized. Let's talk about, so that our viewers can understand, let's talk about this water, what it is and how it got there and how it was produced by the earth.
Yeah, I'd love to. Very interestingly, the modern day consensus in science has been, when you ask a scientist this question, if 5 billion years ago this planet was hot molten lava, where did all that water come from that currently covers more than 70% of the planet and deeply? Where did that come from? Yeah. They will tell you that the majority of it came from meteors from outer space.
With ice on them?
With water, ice, whatever.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
Which, if you think about it for 5 seconds, in my mind, makes zero sense. If you look at the volume of water in the oceans, how could that possibly have come on meteors from outer space? Without, I mean, the planet wouldn't even exist anymore if it had been hit by that much volume and weight, and
Right.
right.
So it's like a couple of mafia guys going, "How much you got on you? How much you got on you? How much water can And you'd say we'd be pummeled. We'd look like the moon.
Yeah, or just not even exist, just blown into bits, right?
Yeah.
So, so there was a very interesting man by the name of Stephen Rees, and he was a hydrogeologist.
Okay.
And he was during Truman's, before Truman became president, um, their family made their wealth from mining.
Okay.
And Stephen Rees was one of their top geologists, hydrogeologists.
Right.
So at that time, very interesting because water trickling down from the surface can only go so far
Of course.
before it just gets stopped. And it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with hard granite rock stopping it. It has to do with the increasing pressure as you go down. There's a certain demarcation point at which water cannot go any further because the pressure just prevents it from doing that.
Right.
But
The other thing I want to interject right there is that if I leave a glass of water sitting on my counter in a room that's very comfortable, in a day or two, that water has evaporated. So imagine going into the earth where it's much warmer, you would lose that water very quickly, correct?
I'm not sure the answer to that, but my first thought would be not necessarily, because the earth itself would contain it within that space,
Yeah.
right? Rather than it evaporating into the huge fishbowl that we live in, which is our atmosphere, right? But so Rees actually, they kept having these extremely valuable silver mines. They would drill down considerably past that demarcation point where water can go. And all of a sudden, water would start pouring out of the rocks and completely drown out these very valuable mines so fast that they couldn't even pump the water out. And they would lose all, these extremely valuable mines. So it made no sense based on the paradigm that they were operating under at that time. So he did a lot of his own research to find out what the truth of this was. And what he discovered is that the planet itself actually makes water. And it makes it under the Earth's crust, down in the magma level. And the intense heat and pressure there creates a synthesis between hydrogen and oxygen, turns it into a gaseous form, and then it finds its way, because of all the pressure, up through these cracks and fissures in the Earth's crust, either to the surface or, in endless numbers of endless amounts, close enough to the surface that if you know how to find these fissures, you can identify where they are exactly and drill into them and tap into this water that's never been on the surface before. It's not, once water gets onto the surface, then it goes into that hydrologic water cycle that we all learned about in high school, where the sun drives it, water evaporates and then becomes snow and rain and
cloud.
And then, and then finds its way down into shallow aquifers, which is where most water wells are drilled into.
Sure.
And then finds its way back to the surface. But interestingly, because of all of the above ground nuclear testing that was done in the 60s, all water that's been on the surface has a radioactive element in it called tritium as an isotope. But water coming up from inside the planet that hasn't been on the surface yet doesn't have tritium in it. So you can actually test to see if it's what we call deep-seated water, or whether it's it's water that is already been in that hydrologic cycle. But it's fascinating because, as it turns out, Rees at that time, based on all of his research, postulated, and it's since been proven by some scientists about 10 years ago with remote sensing equipment, that there is literally 5 times as much fresh water in the Earth's crust and accessible as there is in the oceans on the surface.
That's quite a statement. Yeah. Yeah.
5 times as
Wow.
much. So, as it turns out, there's literally no scarcity whatsoever of fresh water on this planet. There's only been a scarcity of the knowledge of how to find it.
Now, is this why you went into this particular area with so many environmental challenges that we are facing drought situations? This is
Yeah,
what,
that most people don't realize just how um, uh, dangerous the situation is with the what's called desertification. In other
yeah,
words, areas turning into desert.
right,
If you look at a map, if you Google, current maps of the deserts of the world, it's pretty astonishing just how huge of a part of the planet is becoming desertified. And there's some of these maps that you can look at that show, the differences between what it was like 20, 30, 50 years ago
right.
and what's happening now.
Yeah.
But the good news is that this alternative source of water that until Reese came along wasn't really known about. And we have this phenomenally advanced technology that makes it possible for us to identify and pinpoint for a driller exactly where to drill and exactly how deep to drill to hit absolutely 100% success to hit one of these fissures that has abundant ongoing water coming up from far deeper sources than what are normally tapped into.
Do we have sufficient technology with our drilling that we can get to these, or are some of them beyond our reach still?
Some would be beyond our reach, but the fact is, we even with normal drilling equipment, we have been able to find these fissures and reservoirs created by them at very reasonably near surface depth. One of the wells that was drilled using this technology, the closest to the surface that I know about,
Sure.
was 65 feet down,
Oh,
right?
geez.
And when they tapped
Now
into it, they got 1,000 gallons per minute.
now let me clarify. The one that was 65 feet down is not water that seeped in from rainfall.
No,
This was a
it
pocket of the water you're talking about.
That's right. It was coming up through this fissure. It was actually at the top of a very high hill in the Mojave Desert. So no way for rain to trickle down.
No,
Whenever it rains there, it just runs off, right? But this was coming up through a fissure very deep. And as I said, it was, abundant amount of water. 1,000 gallons per minute is a lot of water.
1,000 gallons per minute.
Yeah.
Wow.
Normally, the wells that we have drilled, the average of the wells that we've drilled tend to be between about 300 and 800, 900 feet down, which is considerably more than a 20-foot shallow aquifer well or a 100-foot.
Sure, sure.
But still, it's very drillers, just your standard driller can do that. And sometimes what usually happens with drilling companies when they don't know this tech is, they'll punch holes in different places that they think, there might be water and hope that they hit something. But they usually stop if they hit hard rock and go, oh, well, we've hit hard rock now. But
Yeah.
very often this gold mine of water will be in fissures in the rock or below the rock, right? Below that strata of
And do
rock.
we have technology that can get through most of the rock you find on Earth?
Oh, all the rock you find on Earth. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
So now let's talk about, because people who are listening to this, especially because we're on the web, let's say somebody's in somewhere in Africa and says, we have horrible drought going on. what have there actually been amounts of water brought up and gotten to people who need it, or gotten to areas that need to be irrigated?
Oh, absolutely. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wells.
Okay.
Um, we're working on we've done several projects. We've done about 80 different um, uh, projects in the American Southwest,
Okay.
and for ranchers and farmers primarily.
Oh
But we've
yeah.
also done it for a couple of cities that were in desperate need of water, and they hired us. We came in and we did, we found them water.
What is
Um,
what is the technology for you to put on the special glasses that lets you see where the water is? You know, I'm getting at. How do you
yeah,
locate the water?
yeah. It's this very sophisticated series of steps that
Okay.
we do, and it's actually proprietary, but I can give you the
Yeah,
basics
of
of it,
course.
right?
Yeah.
So the first step is we call phase one, and it's a remote assessment of a particular piece of property or a region. Let's say a farmer
Okay.
that has 45,000 acres of land
Sure.
is desperate for water, and so hires us. And the remote assessment, our scientists gather all the information that they could find about that particular area, everything from the geology of the area
Mhm.
to what wells have been drilled in the area and
Sure.
how deep and how successful those wells were, to the gravity measurements of the area. Gravity changes depending on water impact and influence. So gravity, magnetics,
Okay.
um, and then we have a proprietary algorithm in a software program, and we feed into it all of this satellite mapping data and gravity measurements and magnetics, all this, feed it all in, and it gives us a whole series of maps that are overlaid, different map configurations that are overlaid. And then our scientists evaluate those maps. And based on that evaluation, they can identify on a particular property what we call an areas of interest.
Okay.
And an area of interest would be a defined area in which there's the highest likelihood of finding one of these fissures, one or more of these fissures.
Yeah.
So that's phase one, is we've identified the areas of interest in a region or, on a property. Then phase two is that we send the scientists out to that property, and it takes about 3 to 4 days per area of interest. And we have three different types of very sophisticated scientific equipment
Okay.
that do different things. Put seismic pulses down into the ground and measure different things on the computer that tells them different things. There's several actions that are taken with this equipment.
All
The
right.
end result of that is that not only can we pinpoint for a driller and a landowner precisely where to drill, like not 20 feet over there, right there, right? But also we can tell them precisely how deep to drill and give them an estimate, a range of approximately how many gallons per minute they're going to get from that water source. And then the fourth thing, which is incredibly valuable because this is a big problem, is that before they even start drilling, we can tell them is if that water is going to be saline or not.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's extremely
right?
important. Yeah.
Yeah. So two things happen more often than not. Drillers will drill dry boreholes, and the landowner still has to pay them, even though they get nothing for it. They
Sure.
have to pay them for drilling that hole.
Yeah.
And it's a loss for the landowner. It's a loss for the drilling company too. They don't like to do that, right?
Yeah. Of course.
The other thing is that, it's not infrequent that wells will be drilled, and then, after the fact, they find that the water is too saline to be able to use. And so, again, total waste of resources, total waste of money.
But let me
So
ask
we
you,
can completely avoid that before even starting the drilling.
because you can tell with your technology whether it's too saline or not.
Exactly.
Let's say
Before we
that,
even drill.
okay, let's say the farmer is very desperate though. Is there an easy way with technology yet to desalinate water, or it's
No,
too hard? Yeah, okay.
no. It's a very, very expensive proposition, and most farmers don't have
Yeah.
don't
The
have
other
the
the other question
capability
is,
to do
let's
that.
say they hit a pocket that is not saline. Now, I've seen when people drill oil wells, the oil comes spewing out under pressure. Does the water do that? So, what technology has been developed to capture that water so it doesn't hit the ground and immediately get polluted, or anything?
Right. Well, sometimes when you drill, you'll hit a water that has that much pressure on it that
Okay.
it'll shoot up, which is
Yeah.
actually quite fun. That's
Yeah,
always
of
quite
course. Yeah.
quite fun, right? And then they're able to cap it and get it under control, right? And they develop the well, which means that they put in the pipe, the infrastructure to it, that sort of thing, and are able to put in the control valves
Of course.
that then, you know, keep
Yeah.
that water from escaping except into exactly where they want it to go.
The other question that I'm sure people watching would say, has there been anybody who, over the years of drilling or making wells, that they just got lucky and hit? Like, are there reports of Joe Smith or Sally Jones saying, I was drilling for regular rainfall water and suddenly I hit this pocket, the water kept coming and then it dried up? That was really weird to experience that. It seems like somebody must have gotten lucky enough to hit one of these pockets
Oh,
before.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. The
yeah,
thing is that most people drilling for water, they don't care where that water's coming
yeah,
from. They just
yeah,
need the water, right?
yeah.
And so when they hit water, they're happy. If it's deep-seated water, if it's, shallow aquifer water, they don't care. But it's an interesting problem because and I'm sure many of your viewers will know this. There are so many straws, if you will, being punched into these shallow aquifers in the form of wells
Hmm.
that in many, many places around the world, those aquifers are being drawn down faster than what they can recharge, which is restore
Right,
themselves naturally.
right,
And what that's also, besides the fact that it's drawing that water down, and they keep that trend going, there it's going to just go dry after a while.
right, right.
Um, the other thing is that all of that is causing in some areas subsidence of the land. You're
I,
sucking the water out, and the land's
right.
actually going down, and that's creating all sorts of problems as well. So one of the there's so many pluses to this deep-seated water because one, there's no impact like fracking. You're not going to end up with increased earthquakes. It doesn't have that kind of an impact
Because
at
it's
all.
deep enough that the land that is above it will maintain its integrity, even though you're pulling lots of water out of that section.
That's right. And there's so much water there,
Yeah,
and it gets recharged and
that's
replenished
right.
so
Because
rapidly
you're
that
not counting on rainfall to recharge it. We must
that's
remind
right.
our viewers about that.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. The other thing is what it does is tapping into this resource allows those shallow aquifers to recharge, right?
Okay.
And it allows surface waters to recharge. You have situations like the Rio Grande River, which is just being had, when I was a kid, I grew up in Albuquerque, and the Rio Grande River was truly a grand, large river,
Right.
right? And it's in going through Albuquerque now, it's a trickle. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But all upstream, all the farmers that have needed water,
Sure.
and the towns and all of that have just, are over over utilizing that resource, and
Right.
it's ruining the habitat, everything
Right.
that was so dependent on that. But
Yeah. And with
tapping
receiving
into this allows that to just recharge and come back.
That is good. And with receiving less sunlight as we are, then there is going to be less evaporation of ocean waters, less rainfall and drought. So your technology is so important because not only livestock, but animals and vegetation needs a continual source of water. Otherwise,
Yes.
life starts to be very tedious, and
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. We just finished our phase two. Phase three is the actual drilling part,
Okay.
but because our tech is so precise, we can literally map out down to 2 kilometers below the surface.
Wow.
So it's not a matter of hoping that you're going to hit something. We know for 2 kilometers down exactly what's there, where it's at, and how deep to drill to hit it. So there was a project we just finished phase two on in Arizona for a dude ranch. And they've been struggling. There's been a terrible drought there for 5 or 6 years. Then they got some rain last year, and now it's going back into it looks like it's going to be another bad drought.
Yeah.
So they had a beautiful pond. It was a huge pond. If it was any bigger, you would call it a lake. But
Mhm.
this pond not only was supplying a lot of the water to the ranch, but it was also spilling over just from all the natural recharge. It was spilling over into a wash, and that water was going 20 miles down that wash to a lake. And it had created habitat for the wildlife and the free range cattle for 20 miles down this wash. With the drought, the pond dried up, and that pond was 18 feet deep and about half an acre across.
Wow.
It was a big pond.
Yeah.
So, but it dried up, and so that whole wash has dried up, badly impacting the vegetation, the
Oh yeah.
wildlife, the free range cattle, right? So we are really excited because she knew that if she could get 50 gallons per minute, that she could she could build that pond back up and have extra water that would wash over the wash. We found her a site that has that's very much within drilling range, that looks like it's got somewhere between 400 to 600 gallons per minute.
Hold on. You said she would like 50, and
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
you've quite increased that, boy. I bet she's smiling.
Oh, she is really excited, and I'm
We're just
excited about
about
it
out of
too.
time today. I wanted to allow people to get some kind of information from you on how they can find out more about this. And if they're a young person or a person in transition and would like to work on projects like this, how would people find out more information and be able to get in touch with you?
Well, thanks for asking. They should
Sure.
go to our website, which is https
Yes, please.
colon backslash backslash, right? It doesn't have the www in it.
Okay.
The reason that's why I'm saying that. Um, and then it's don't forget the
Right.
earthorganization.org.
Okay.
So the Earth Organization
TheEarthOrganization.org.
.org. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they want to call us, they can call our office, 818-330-9528.
Give that again, please.
818-330-9528.
Right.
Or they can email us at info@theearthorganization.org. Yeah.
It's been great to have you on the show because the planet looks beautiful from space because it looks like it has so much water, but that's all salt water. And you mentioned that trying to convert that to drinking water is, at some point I think we'll have the technology because we'll need it. But for today, it's very difficult to change that water into water we can utilize. So
Yeah.
what you're doing is so valuable because we are experiencing a worldwide drought on this planet, and that can affect, as you say, wildlife, ability to grow crops and keep them properly watered, and then of course humanity
Food
needing water.
security.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd
I
like
mean,
to have you back on in about 3 months or so and see what new developments have come about. I really want to hear about this. I want to see a photograph of this farmer smiling when she goes 400 gallons a minute. Or what she said, you know. My
Well,
God.
I'm planning to go back there and actually film her and film the drilling in just a few weeks when they're going to do it. So you will get to see that.
Yeah,
Another thing I'm
sure.
be happy to come back on in 3 months, because we are just about to close getting the money to do a very large project for the entire northern part of Kenya, which has
Oh,
been
that's
going through.
fantastic.
It's a humanitarian crisis
Oh,
there
yeah.
right now that is horrible,
Yeah.
and we have the solution to it with
Yeah.
our water.
And you have no
So
doubt that there's that kind of water under Africa, Australia, anywhere, right?
it's everywhere. It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we'll
Yeah.
talk to you in 3 months. And if you have a clip of this individual, we can work it out with the producer to perhaps you can email them that clip and then we can show it on our next interview.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Happy to
Thank
do
you
that.
for what you're doing, which positively affects everyone on the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for helping me get the word out.
Oh, absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for
Sounds
watching
good.
We Have the Power. Tune in next Thursday at 5 p.m. live. We'll be talking about another issue that affects you. But remember, we have the power to make this world a livable, safe, and peaceful place. I will see you next Thursday. Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks, Brian. Bye.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.